This was a most bizarre palace. On either side of the hall, what was displayed in the cabinets were not jewels or treasures, but living human heads. A woman, leading a little girl, stopped before an empty cabinet. Using a ruby key, she unlocked the door, then calmly removed her own head and placed it inside. The girl was so terrified by what she saw that she let out a scream. The woman, however, simply walked over to another cabinet, picked up the head stored within, and asked the girl how it looked.
I think you're very beautiful.
After fixing the head onto herself, Dorothy gathered her courage and asked where her good friend the Scarecrow was. The woman beckoned her to come closer, explaining that the Scarecrow had been taken into the mountains by the Gnome King. At the same time, she examined Dorothy's head and announced that she would take it, keep it locked away for 10 years until the hair grew long enough. Dorothy suddenly realized this woman was no princess at all, but a witch, and she tried to escape, but it was already too late. She had been captured. Even though the hen and TikTok did their best to resist, Dorothy was still locked away in the tower by the witch. There she met Jack Pumpkinhead and helped him put his body back together. The two became friends, and Jack told Dorothy that the witch had a jar of powder of life, kept in the same cabinet as her original head. Dorothy looked around and felt this was their best chance to escape. When Jack managed to open the door, she slipped into the witch's chamber and stole the ruby key while the witch wasn't looking. She found cabinet number 31 and successfully retrieved the powder of life. But just then, one of the witch's heads opened its eyes and spotted Dorothy, immediately summoning the witch's body to chase her. Luckily, Dorothy used her quick thinking to rescue TikTok, then sprinkled the powder of life onto the moose-headed flying contraption that her friends had built. At the very last moment, they escaped the witch's pursuit. Flying high in the sky, Dorothy finally felt safe enough to sleep soundly for the first time in a long while, but peace didn't last. The moose ship soon fell apart in midair, and the four of them crashed down onto snowy mountains. When Dorothy looked up, she saw Gnome Mountain in the distance. They had nearly reached their destination. Just then, the Gnome King appeared behind them in the form of stone. With a gesture, he split open the snowy ground and Dorothy fell into the depths below. Transforming into human form, the Gnome King revealed that he had not only stolen all the emeralds of the Emerald City but also Dorothy's ruby slippers. The Gnome King told Dorothy that saving the Scarecrow was simple. She just needed to enter his treasure chamber, find which ornament was actually the Scarecrow, and shout Oz to restore him. But if she chose wrong, she would pay the price. TikTok and Jack went in first, but when Dorothy heard no sound from them for a long time, she realized they too had been transformed into ornaments. Furious, she protested that the game was unfair, but now all hope rested on her alone. Dorothy bravely stepped into the chamber. Trusting her instincts, she placed her hand on a bright green gem and shouted Oz. Instantly, the Scarecrow was restored. Overjoyed, Dorothy soon discovered the pattern. Anyone who was once a citizen of Oz had been turned into green ornaments. One by one, she restored all her companions. The Gnome King, seeing his spell broken, flew into a rage. Returning to his true monstrous form, he grabbed Jack and prepared to devour him. Suddenly, an egg rolled out of Jack's pumpkin head and dropped straight into the Gnome King's mouth. Inside Jack's head, the hen had been hiding all along, and at that moment she had finally laid her very first egg. To the Gnome King, however, an egg was deadly poison. He convulsed, corroded from within, and then dissolved into nothingness. Dorothy retrieved her ruby slippers and led her friends back to safety. With the Gnome King destroyed, all those who had been turned to stone were restored. The Emerald City returned to its former glory, and the witch Mombi lost her powers and was captured. The people of the Emerald City held a grand celebration to thank Dorothy and her companions. There, Dorothy also rescued the princess trapped in the mirror, who turned out to be the very same girl she had once met upon leaving the mental asylum. The princess transformed into a queen, and in gratitude, she safely sent Dorothy back home. After that, Dorothy was no longer forced by her aunt and uncle to return to the asylum, and she was given her very own room. Her days grew happier than ever.